In the pre-dawn silence, when the first rays of the sun barely penetrated the veil of clouds, life was boiling at the airfield. Technicians were bustling around the planes, checking the engines and arming the vehicles for a new departure. Among them, an experienced pilot stood out, whose name everyone knew: Victor. Victor was not just a pilot, he was a real ace, a master of his craft. He had hundreds of missions, dozens of battles, and hundreds of victories behind him. But every time he took to the air, his heart skipped a beat, because every flight could be his last. The IL-2, nicknamed the Flying Tank, was a reliable and formidable weapon in the hands of Soviet pilots. This attack aircraft has become a true symbol of courage and heroism on the Eastern Front. It was created in order to strike at ground targets, supporting infantry and destroying enemy equipment. The first days of the war were a living hell for Victor and his comrades. German planes dominated the air, and chaos reigned on the ground. But the Soviet pilots did not give up. They fought bravely, covering their comrades and inflicting damage on the enemy. Victor remembered his first fight. At that time, he was still an inexperienced pilot, but he already understood that a lot depended on his actions. He was tasked with destroying an enemy artillery battery that was shelling Soviet positions. After taking off from the airfield, Victor saw German planes circling over the battlefield. He knew that he would have to fight not only with ground targets, but also with air targets. But that didn't scare him. He was ready to fight. Flying up to the target, Victor launched an attack. His IL-2 entered the battery, firing several bursts from the guns. The explosions tore through the ground, destroying the guns. But the German planes were not asleep. They attacked Victor, trying to knock him down. The fight was fierce. Victor maneuvered away from the fire and continued to attack. He saw how the explosions destroyed enemy guns as smoke and flames rose into the sky. And at that moment, he realized that he had not come here in vain. When the fight was over, Victor looked around the battlefield. Everything was shrouded in smoke and dust. But he knew that his work here was important. He destroyed an artillery battery that could have inflicted serious damage on the Soviet troops. With each new flight, Victor became more experienced and more confident. He learned to read the sky, predict the enemy's actions, and find weaknesses in his defenses. But every time he returned from a mission, he knew that tomorrow there would be a new battle, new challenges. One day, Victor was assigned to support the Soviet offensive. His IL-2 was supposed to fly low over the ground, shelling enemy positions and covering infantry. Taking off from the airfield, Victor saw the offensive unfolding ahead. The Soviet troops were attacking, and the German guns were firing at them. Victor understood that his work was extremely important right now. He launched an attack, firing at enemy positions. His IL-2 moved over the battlefield like a real flying tank, protecting its comrades on the ground. Victor saw how the explosions tore through the ground, how guns and equipment were destroyed. And at that moment, he felt like a real hero. But the fight was far from easy. German anti-aircraft guns were firing at the IL-2, trying to shoot it down. Victor maneuvered, dodging the projectiles, and continued to attack. He knew that every shot he fired could save the life of a Soviet soldier. Finally, the Soviet offensive achieved success. The enemy was driven back, and Victor returned to the airfield. His plane was damaged, but he survived, and that was the most important thing. With each new departure, Victor's IL-2 became more and more famous among Soviet soldiers. They knew they could count on him in a difficult moment, and it gave Victor strength and confidence. But the war spared no one. One day, returning from a mission, Victor saw a German fighter getting in his way. The German car was rapidly approaching, and Victor realized that he had little time to make a decision. He turned sharply to the side, trying to avoid the collision. But the German fighter was too close. Victor felt the plane shaking from the impact and realized that it was damaged. But he didn't give up. He continued to maneuver, dodging the fire of the German fighter. Finally, Victor was able to escape from the pursuit. He landed at the airfield where technicians were already waiting for him. They quickly inspected the plane and reported that the damage was not serious. Victor understood that it was a real miracle. He survived this battle, but he understood that war does not forgive mistakes. Each flight could be the last. But Victor wasn't afraid. He knew that he had to protect his homeland, his comrades, and his family, and he was ready for it. The IL-2 became a symbol of the courage and heroism of Soviet pilots. These planes inflicted devastating blows on German positions, supporting the advance of the Soviet troops. They have become a real weapon of victory on the Eastern Front. Victor and his comrades fought bravely, not sparing themselves. They understood that their work was important for winning, and they did their best to accomplish their task. Victory has come. The Soviet Union defeated the enemy, and the world saw what the Soviet people and their technology were capable of. The IL-2 became not only a symbol of victory, but also a symbol of courage, bravery, and heroism. Victor returned home. He became a hero whose name everyone knew. But that wasn't the main thing for him. The main thing is that he fulfilled his duty, defended his homeland and his comrades, and that was the most important thing in his life.